stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and for those that are watching, for tuning in. I just want to start off, first of all, just wishing everybody a happy Mother's Day. So that all the moms here and watching today, we appreciate all that you do. And of course, my colleagues here to my right as well, and further right. We don't ever want to forget our clerk now. All right, so I hope you all had a wonderful day yesterday.
Yes.
Our first item of business is a presentation by the mayor for Mental Health Month.
Okay. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
And members of the public. I would like to call up Crystal Mosby, who is the manager of Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Services with Oakland Community Health Network. And this evening I have a presentation, a resolution, as May is Mental Health Month. So whereas mental health is important for our individual well-being as well as for our families, communities, and businesses, and whereas 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental health issue or illness rather, that requires treatment at some point in their lives, and whereas mental illness is biologically based brain disorder that cannot be overcome through willpower and is not related to a defect in a person's character or intelligence, and whereas stigma and stereotypes associated with mental illnesses often keep people from seeking treatment that could improve the quality of their life. And whereas health recovery is a journey of healing, enabling people with mental illness to live in a community while striving to achieve his or her full potential, and whereas Oakland Community Health Network exists to ensure that all persons afflicted with mental illness have access to services that will improve their health and quality of life. And whereas the Oakland Community Health Network, whose mission is to inspire hope, empower people, and strengthen communities, leads a provider service network that assists more than 27,000 Oakland County citizens and manages a $300 million budget annually for these folks. So now therefore be resolved that I, Kenson Siver, Mayor of the City of Southfield County of Oakland, State of Michigan, do hereby proclaim May 2019 as Mental Health Month in the City of Southfield, and I call upon Southfield residents to increase their awareness and understanding of mental illnesses and the need for services for those who suffer in our community.
Very good, thank you.
So I thank you for that. And I want to present this to Ms. Mosby. And if you'd like to say a few words to the council, please.
Yes, thank you, Southfield Council. We truly appreciate at Oakland Community Health Network, we are the public catchment. So we do Medicaid and the uninsured. So we so appreciate that in these times, it is vitally important that people understand the mental health awareness and the stigma that is attached to it that you're helping revoke from the public's eye. So we thank you. We just want everyone to know that we're located in Troy, Michigan, and so if anyone ever needs our assistance, please call us. Even if you have regular insurance, our Access Center, 1200 Telegraph, does a beautiful job to make sure we'll refer you to wherever you need to go. So again, thank you, and we appreciate this. You all have a good evening.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have a few appointments to be made this evening.
I have several appointments. So I'd like to call up first the reappointments to the Historic District Commission. Mary Lewis, James Schuster, if he's in the audience, I didn't see him, and Darla Van Hoy. Council, both Mr. Schuster and Ms. Lewis and Ms. Van Hoy have served this commission. We have a number of things coming up shortly with we've had the state approval now of Northland Gardens and Plumbrook Estates as historic neighborhoods. This has now gone on to the Department of Interior, the United States Department of Interior for a federal designation, and we have several buildings that we're looking for historic designations, so our committee is active, and I'm asking for the reappointment of these three individuals this evening.
Support.
Need a motion first.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Appointments, reappointments of the several ones mentioned by the mayor.
All right. I'll take Mr. Brightwell's support.
All right,
since
there you
it's, So it's been moved by Mr. Fracassi, supported by Mr. Brightwell, that we approve the reappointments of Mary Lewis, James Schuster, and Darla Van Hoy to the Historic District Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Congratulations, and thank you again for serving. Appreciate it.
And Madam Clerk, do you want to do the swearing in, and then we'll move on to the others?
Congratulations. Raise your hand for me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of this state, and the city charter, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Historic District Commissioner to the best of my ability. Okay. Ms. Lewis? Okay. Just sign right there for me. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
And if you don't mind, we'd like to have you all come up, and we'd like to greet you and thank you for your service. You can come this way.
And then we have to get him later on. I'll keep this.
James, and I'm doing James Rowell.
Thomas here.
Yeah. Okay, he's here. So,
All right, Mr. Mayor, two more appointments.
I'm also asking the council this evening to approve the reappointment of James Ralph, Jr., to the Downtown Development Authority. Mr. Ralph has served on that body for many years now. He's currently the chairman of the DDA. Mr. Ralph is here this evening. I think you all know him.
Yes.
So I'm asking for a motion to reapprove or approve his reappointment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the reappointment of James Ralph Jr.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Mandelbaum, supported by Ms. Morris, that we approve the appointment of Mr. James Ralph, to the Downtown Development Authority. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, we're all set.
James?
Is Mr. Litzler here,
Congratulations.
Mayor?
And a swearing.
Would you
There
like,
he
can
is.
we
There he is.
do them both at the same time?
There's the man.
Well, he's a reappointment.
He's not, okay.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of this state, and the city charter, and I will faithfully perform the duties of Downtown Developmental Authority member according to the best of my ability.
All right, come on up, Mr. Ralph. We're gonna get our exercise today.
Already did enough squats.
Thomas will as soon as he's done. But come on up. You dropped the button.
You joining the council?
I understand.
Okay, council, I have one last appointment this evening. I would like to, we have a very active Southfield City Center Advisory Board that meets every month and has done much for the improvement of our city center. We recently had a retirement from the board. Our chair, who had served for years from the Shostak Company, has retired, and so I'm asking you to approve the appointment of Thomas Litzler from Shostak to serve on the City Center Advisory Board. Again, Shostak is one of our leading real estate companies in the city and in the city center area, so it's I believe, a critical appointment. So I'd ask that you approve his appointment.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the appointment as identified by the mayor.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Brightwood, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum, that we approve Mr. Litzler to the City Center Advisory Board.
Correct.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
All right.
Congratulations.
You're in.
I do solemnly swear affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state, and the city charter, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of City Center Advisory Board to the best of my abilities. I do. Okay. Sign right here for me. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bert.
And we have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Very nice meeting you. Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a set of meeting minutes that need to be approved.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
This moved by Mr. Fakasi, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve the regular meeting minutes of April 29, 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. We have, next we're going to the consent agenda. In our earlier session, we chose to remove item A from the consent agenda. The rest of the items need to be approved.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent agenda items B through L.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Morris, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, that we approve consent agenda items B through L. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, consent agenda items approved. Our next point of business is our public hearing on the 2019-2020 Community Block Development Grant.
Mr. President, Rick Lampy, our Community Development Block Grant Coordinator, will be presenting the item before this evening's public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zorn.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll make a short presentation about the block grant program, talk about proposed activities. The council will have a public hearing on it, and hopefully after that approve an annual action plan for the use of the block grant funds. Interesting point, this is the 45th year that Southfield's been involved in the block grant program. And during that time, we've received $22.3 million. So it has had an impact over the years. This year, we've been informed by HUD that our entitlement will be $447,000, which represents really a 5% decrease from the current funding levels we have this year. What we're proposing to do to the council is to approve the same activities. We have basically 11 activities, and reduce the same budget amount, but reduce each item by 5% from the current year's funding levels. Yeah. This slide kind of shows what we're proposing for this year and the last 2 years' worth of funding. Again, basically, it's the same activities, the chore program, the SHIP program, Rebuilding Together, code enforcement, the Emergency Relief Fund through Human Services, TOSS, Southfield Youth Assistance, Haven, South Oakland Shelter, funding for administration and fair housing activities. The column on the right is what we are recommending. The next column over is 2018-19. That is our current budget. And as I mentioned before, we're looking at a 5% reduction in each of those activities.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Well, we need to open the public hearing up first then, so if you wouldn't mind, you can just have a seat right there for a minute.
Okay.
And, we'll open it up. So again, we would like to now open up the public hearing for the approval of the Community Development Block Grant. For those that would like to speak on this matter, you can come to the lectern. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is still 248-346-0439. I've been around the city of Southfield for about 36, going on 37 years. And traditionally, because we've understood in the United States, but I'll speak to Michigan because that's where we are, that domestic violence, elder abuse, and drug addiction is high and it's on the rise. Everyone in this room and everyone sitting up there on the dais understands that Haven is a very valuable service. It is the largest domestic violence shelter in the state of Michigan. I am appalled with all that we know about domestic violence and other abuse, and especially with the rise in human trafficking and prostitution right here in the city of Southfield, that we are only giving Haven $745. Now, what can you do with $745? That's probably only enough money for printing costs for the company. Now, we've got a lot of other things up there that I think we could squeeze a few dollars from. SHORE is a very valuable program, but everything has been cut. Why can't you take that $28.40 from SHORE and give some of it to Haven? You can't keep saying that you understand about domestic violence, about elder abuse, about drug addiction, and now the elevated cases of human trafficking and prostitution right here in our great city of Southfield, and not think about Haven more than $745. Now, I know a lot of you like to just rubber stamp these figures when they come up there, but you got to go through each one of those line items and make sure that we are properly addressing it and giving it the attention that it deserves. And there are women in this city that have benefited from Haven, that used Haven to get away from their abuser and to change their life. So to only give them $745, you're basically saying that even though we know this is high on the rise, it's not high on our agenda to allocate funds. So do better than that. I want to see a cut tonight, if you got the courage.
Again, this is a public hearing. If there are any other residents that'd like to speak to this matter, please come to the lectern. Give your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Sarah Habo. My address is 29245 Marshall Street, Southfield, Michigan 48076. And I just want to ask for clarification regarding what is encompassed with the fair housing activities and administration, because those seem to eat up a lot of the costs. I was wondering what specifically the breakdown was and what that encompassed. And then also with the code enforcement and ADA improvements, what sort of projects fall within those areas? Thank you.
Thank you. This is, again, the public hearing is still open. If there's any others that would like to speak to this matter, please come forward.
Good evening, President and leadership. My name is Tina Poole, 20501 Oldham Road, Southfield, Michigan, 48076. And I am the chair for the 2018-19 year for the Southfield Youth Assistance. And I really want to say thank you so much for considering Southfield Youth Assistance. This is like probably the 5th year that I know of. And what that grant does for us is to provide services for our youth who otherwise would not be able to participate in various programs and camps throughout the city. So again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other residents or individuals here that would like to speak to this matter?
How you doing today? I'm with All Race and Life Matter. I was just at a big meeting with P.O. Box 2769, Southfield, Michigan 48037. I was at a big meeting earlier this week with a lot of judges, mental health workers. I would really like to see Southfield, involve themselves more in the opioids, the mental health of some of our residents and throughout Oakland County. It was a phenomenal meeting with Roy McAllister, a few judges from Macomb. It was a real big deal. Hundreds of people were there. And, and what we're trying to do is get some of our elected officials to join us in our next meeting so we can talk about human trafficking and, like I said, opioids and the effect of unfair incarceration. So those are some of the things I would really like to see us getting more involved in with our block grants and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else present that would like to speak to this particular matter on the Community Development Block Grant, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. We had a couple questions on the floor that maybe that we could speak to before Council.
Sure. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Picasso.
I'd just like to make available that, the CDBG history where the amount of money, it keeps getting cut more and more off these programs. And so it gets to be a real hard thing to distribute the few dollars that come through on this program. It used to be where we could address them a lot more than we do presently. The second thing, Mr. Chairman, is there's no page number on it, but it says before a motion be made, it said it is recommended that an opportunity for public discussion should be given on other possible projects. All projects proposed with the use of the 2019-20 CDBG funds, as noted above, will benefit lower or moderate income areas or individuals. All CDBG activities have been designed to avoid the displacement of persons. In the event of displacement becomes necessary, the city will assist displaced persons in accordance with the Federal Uniform Relocation Act. It goes on to, with 2 more paragraphs. Is that a recommendation that's going to be additional to the recommendation that falls on the other recommendation? I know the 5-year plan is mentioned in the motion, but I don't know about about this one.
No, it's a good question because it's under
There's no page number on it, I can't refer to it.
it's under
Here.
the
Yeah,
grant
you
program.
see this right-
It's right here. This last page.
So it mentions funds by adopting action plan and the 5-year consolidation plan is a recommendation. I was wondering what that meant to, is that another meeting on June 3rd? It's being
No.
referred to?
The 5-year plan is a plan that was approved 5 years ago, really, and we're in the 5th year of it right now. And so you approve a 5-year plan, and then every year an annual action plan that conforms with that 5-year plan. We're at a point where this is the 5th year. We'll be starting to put together the next 5-year plan the next time we see you next year. And it'll be a 5-year plan. We work with Oakland County. We get direction from HUD of what has to be involved in the plan. But basically, you're looking at the needs of communities and putting it into a 5-year needs assessment and analysis. So what we're talking about tonight is part of the original 5-year plan, and we'll start that process for a new 5-year plan next year.
So that would be that'd be page 2 then of the recommendation, where it mentions City Council will be asked to formally approve the uses by adopting action plan and the 5-year consolidated plan. Just the one motion is
That would
needed?
be fine, yes. And if there were a substantial amendment to that plan, if we were coming in with something drastically different than what's proposed or what was in the original 5-year plan, then we'd spell it out that we want a substantial amendment to this plan approved tonight. But we don't, because we're going to wait, we're going to start to put the new plan together next year with new demographic information.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, so in 2016, we adopted or implemented a 5-year plan, and each year we adopt an annual plan that gets inserted with that, and those annual plan activities must be consistent with what is in the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan, as Mr. Lampe has indicated, is a plan that we work in conjunction with Oakland County and all of the entitlement communities and non-entitlement communities within Oakland County. So the data that they gather on seniors, the data that they gather on housing is all incorporated into that plan. So 2016, we adopted a 5-year plan, and each year, as your funding comes in, you place it in an annual plan, and that's the action you're being asked to speak to tonight. I would like to comment that 15%, the issue of Toss, Haven, and emergency relief, our Southfield Youth Assistance, the South Oakland County Shelter, administration concurs, there's never enough money. However, only 15% of our allocation can be utilized for those social service programs. We're allowed to use 20% for administration and fair housing. The remainder typically goes into activities that HUD supports, housing, neighborhood support, and that's where you'll see Rebuilding Together. Rebuilding Together, we know historically, for every dollar we put in, we leverage between $6 to $8 of labor and other donations and materials. Code enforcement, 20% of the city by census tract is community development block grant eligible or classified as low income. So we use that money to offset costs of code enforcement in those neighborhoods. That includes things like grass cutting, buying bags for leaves to rake up leaves and different things. SHIP entitlement or chore, our human services department, that's the money that they manage to help primarily our seniors and low-income residents make minor home repairs, the small plumbing repair, the light fixture that needs to be replaced. If I'm correct, they're usually repairs under $600.
$400.
And then the SHIP entitlement, that's one where there's just never enough money. There's a waiting list from new windows to roofs and hot water tanks and furnaces. And I'll remind council, I think we're now in our 6th year of getting home money, and that goes through the county, and we've had well over $1 million come into Southfield through that program. Prior to the actions council took in implementing that, I think 5-6 years ago, that money was all going to the state and wasn't coming into the cities to benefit our residents.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
What happens on June 3rd then?
Yeah,
That's the question. Because in the letter says there's a 30-day
That's a HUD
period.
requirement.
Oh, there's a comment period in the
There's a comment
newspaper,
period.
so we'll receive
So
more
after we
comments.
approve tonight, 30 days before it really takes full effect, I guess.
Yeah.
but it says the public is invited to have input on that, so are we
They would
going to give?
They would contact us if there's any public contact. That's significantly different than what you approved tonight. We would, I guess, bring it back to you or incorporate it into the plan.
And how can they contact you?
I believe it's right in there.
I mean, for people that.
They contact the Community Development Office.
Just contact the Community Development Office, okay.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we approve.
I have a question.
Oh, all right, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Morris.
Okay. Rick, the 447,644 is, on your presentation, it still says estimate. Is that the estimate or is that the final?
That's the final. We received that shortly after we met last month. And we didn't know what we were getting last month, and then about 3 weeks ago, we got written notice that this would be the dollar amount.
Okay, we just didn't get a chance to take the estimate off.
I should have said.
But HUD could still change that. I mean, and what we.
Truly, but at this point, it's final.
Yeah, that's what
That's
we're
what we've
going
been told. And this is the earliest we've received that number in a number of years. There's sometimes we're September, October, still working with estimates.
And, okay, thank you. And the next question is, Sarah asked, but you did mention some of the things that code enforcement does.
Code.
But I'd like to know more specifically, if I could have a more detailed understanding of how the funds were spent in code enforcement.
They offset the salaries.
Not verbally, written.
Written?
If you could
Okay.
provide me with that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Taylor?
And then if you could give your email so that people will know if they're unable to reach you by phone, what is the email address within the 30-day comment period regarding the expenditures?
Okay. My email address is rlampi, RLAMPI, at cityofsouthfield.com.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, too, I know, Fred, you said that the public services can only receive 15% of the total. Is there any way that we could look at moving some of the funds around in there? I know everybody there needs all the money, but could we make it like $1,000 even for Haven and South Oakland Shelter? Just $1,000 would help them a lot better than $700. Is there any way we could just,
The answer is yes. We can massage the numbers as long as we stay within that 15% within the categories. So,
I mean, at least that, I mean.
255, 510. So between the top three, we would split 510 off of each of them.
Because I know that they're all important. And I've had the opportunity to work with South Oakland Shelter on several occasions, and they are very, very busy. A lot of residents utilize SOS for sure, and Haven. So whatever dollars we could move around.
So we'll deduct $170 from each of the top three items.
Okay.
It will still be in that percentage.
Still be in that percentage? Okay. Wish we could
We'll
do
have
more.
to do the arithmetic.
I really wish we could do more.
Yep, Mr. Brightwood?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just happen to see something here that says contact information. On the last page of the last page in the package, it says the housing department at 26,000. So that's you.
That's me.
So it is housing department, not.
Yeah, the housing departments where they would come. And we would talk about the CDBG program.
Okay.
All
Okay. I
right.
just happen to see. Seemed like some other place got bounded around. But the telephone number there, it is public, 248-796-4174.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mandelbaum?
Thank you. I was going to make the same comment that Councilwoman Taylor did about Haven and South Oakland Shelter, but I had another, so I appreciate that we're going to move around that money, but I did have a question based on this 3-year trend that we see. Is it possible to get a breakdown? I know Councilwoman Morris asked for something similar, but can we get a trend of where that money, how that money is being spent for the last 3 years in all the categories? So, for example, when you come to us next year, we could say, okay, well, TOS, which I know is valuable for our seniors, but maybe we can take either, maybe they need more, maybe they need a little bit of less. I'm not picking on them for any reason. Just I picked a category. But I just want to see, in the overall total budget, what we're putting in versus what's being spent for those categories. Does that make sense?
Well, basically, like in the TOS category, everything's being spent on TOS. It's in the budget.
Right, but I'm saying overall TOS. So the TOS budget is not, $25,000.
Oh, okay.
It's much larger. We put in a percentage. I'd like to see what that total budget is, and then the expenses that come out, just so we can see, maybe, because we do in general stick with a trend of the same categories, similar amounts every year based on what we get, but maybe there's a need to redistribute the money in different ways for next year.
So do you want that for the last 5-year plan?
The last, I'm fine with the last 3 years, based on what we're given 17, 18, 18, 19, and then I guess 19, 20 as it happens.
Yeah, and then after the 30-day comment period, what's done with the comments? Is that written and summarized somewhere?
It's written, summarized, and submitted to HUD, and it's on the city's website now. You can see the 5-year plan and all the comments that were submitted. Just the note I just made here is I'll work with Mr. Lampe. We'll post something on Cable 15, the community bulletin boards here. There's advertisements placed in the newspaper.
Correct.
We go through this process. We've been going through the process year after year. HUD monitoring visits come and go through this. I do want to say something, though. On administrative end, you are probably one of the few cities that don't have a full-time person administering this. Our personnel costs for this position were in excess of $160,000 a year. So we're running this with a non-career part-time employee. So I've got to be considerate of the time constraints of staff personnel. And it's not just the request that council's making. This is a very intensive reporting program. The reports and the paperwork that go to HUD, every week something's being submitted, monitoring visits, all of those things take time. The reality is we're running a program that if these cuts keep happening, we're not going to be able to afford to staff this without the general fund subsidizing the position. And as you look at cutting these other programs, I'm going to point out the emergency relief, TOS, and the Southfield Youth Assistance, all of those, the history on the Southfield Youth Assistance, there's a court agreement that the city of Southfield would fund that program. And so as the Community Development Block Grant is covering that expenditure for the city, not the general fund. The dollars we put into our human services program, emergency relief, the only money we have to work with is Community Development Block Grant, not the general fund. The same thing with TOS. The money we put into TOS isn't general fund money. It's the money we get from CDBG, smart municipal credits, and I think there are 3 buckets of funding that we get. And every year that the funding for that program has gotten smaller, and it costs more to operate that program every year. And as our population gets older, there's more demand. So there's a real stress point on these dollars. And I think it's important that we recognize the challenge. I'm hoping we can easily produce the reports from the reporting system, but it is not an easy reporting system to use.
Well, I was just asking about the comments just because I just wanted to try to ascertain
Sure.
what types of things people were interested in.
Yep. We can easily print up the comments that are on the web right now, and then as the new ones come in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Percassi.
I move the 2019-20 Community Development Block Grant Public as presented to us this evening, taking into consideration those items that the council has raised and see whether or not they can be addressed and addressed anyways, those changes that you can address.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Percassi, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum, that we approve the proposed 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant with the, the proposed changes made by council. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
by the way.
Our next portion of the meeting is our communications portion. Hopefully, though, everyone has had an opportunity to read through the established rules and procedures for all speakers that deals with our communications. If not, I ask that you read that as you're getting ready to come before the council today. We'll start with our first request for recognition. It's Pamela Gerald. Again, please give your name and address for the record for everyone that comes up, and everyone will have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Gerald.
Well, correction, you only have to really do that for a public hearing. You don't have to do that for communications. But since you asked me, I will do that. Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037-0155. My telephone number again is still 248-346-0439. I just wanted to give a shout out to our acting chief, Brian Bassett. You know, we have the Citizens Academy program that started. It was a vision of community policing and our former chief that we had. This program has been ongoing since 2012, and we've gotten so many residents invested in becoming a member of the Citizen Academy, going through the 12-week program, but more importantly, to partake in the Chief's Advisory Board. Now, for me, what that does, that makes the residents concerned about community policing and the manner in which the officers deal with our demographics. And the city has changed in the 36-year history that I have. It went from being predominantly white and Jewish to now being mostly populated with African Americans and other diverse ethnic groups. But I think to have that type of program and have that relationship with our residents and with the police department and having that open door access to the chief, it's made a huge difference in the city of Southfield. And I've seen the change in 36 years being here. Thank God we have not had a Ferguson, Missouri situation. We have not had problems with police brutality here in the city of Southfield, and I can tell you from all the chiefs that I've seen over a 36-year period, they don't tolerate that type of behavior. And I know that we are in the process of selecting a chief, and we need to be careful with who we select. We need to make sure that they understand how the residents value community policing and what we expect in a chief. And I just want to thank Acting Chief Bassett for continuing what Chief Hawkins put in place with that program and the relationship that we have with the police department. And the other thing that I wanted to say was I wanted to thank you guys for giving Haven and the South Oakland shelter a bit more money, but I still think that if you guys believe that we have those problems, you got to find some more money and be a little bit more creative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Gerard Mullen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gerard Mullen, Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037. Mr. Chairman, tonight I would like to talk about Section 4.1. Section 4.1 in Council's City Charter. Section 4.1 deals with how and when Council elects the Council President. That's you, Mr. Chairman. And I quote from Section 4.1C. The Council, at its second regular meeting in November of each year, shall elect a Council President, unquote. Sad to say, on Monday, November 19th, in the year 2018, at the first regular meeting in November, you folks here screwed up, and you screwed up big, by prematurely electing Dr. Cruz, that's you, Mr. Chairman, as Council President, 1 week too early, according to the Charter. The proper way, according to Section 4.1, was to hold the presidential election on November 26th at the second regular meeting in November. Mr. Chairman, what happened? How did you folks manage to screw this one up? I, being on this side of the lectern, can't tell you exactly how you folks screwed up, but I can surmise how you folks may have screwed up. Here goes. The then Council President, Dan Brightwell, was at the helm of the ship at that time, and thus he set the agenda, the premature agenda, for the November 19th Council meeting. It's hard to believe, but no one here on Council caught Mr. Brightwell's error. This is the very same Dan Brightwell who had earlier told us, the mere residents of Southfield, that he was the best. Yes, indeed, the very best. The best council president that this city has ever seen in the last 20 years. My, high praise indeed. Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Sonia Simpson Gardner. Doesn't seem to be present this evening. Our next request is Mr. Gregory Keeler.
Greg Keeler, 25170 Circle Drive. I have a question. How come in 2011 we had 5 minutes to speak, and now in 2019 we only have 3 minutes to speak? I wonder if we had y'all come out and speak to us and talk to us, we only gave y'all 3 minutes to speak and cut y'all off, the same as you do to us. This is kind of disrespectful that y'all took us down 2 minutes. I guess you couldn't get away with putting us at 1 minute to speak. And then I have a question to ask of, keep going with disrespect. I came here and I asked for a sewer line on my street. The bond was for a sewer line. Why am I being talked to about a septic? I was not bonded for a septic tank. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to be speaking to me about anything other than a sewer line. Second thing, you put a dorm on my street. Somebody, the city or Lawrence Tech, should have put a sewer line in there. The only reason the dorm is moved back from the street the way it is was because I came here and said it shouldn't be on our street, and then argued, and then I also brought in a picture showing that they can move it back and put it closer to their property. I've watched how some of the questions from some of our female councilwomen have not been answered or not been looked to. I've watched as administrators have come, females, and have also been disrespected. I look at this letter and you want us to respect y'all, but I also seen disrespect up there. We got to start respecting each other all over the place and not taking each other for granted. I am also looking at that in 2011, y'all extended the contract for sewer lines and water lines. How come we weren't a part of that? How come we aren't a part of it 2 years later? You did a 2-year extension. That would be agreements that y'all made that was CA-A. And you'll find it there. And then I'll show you the rest of, and then I also would like to know, how come nobody has been fired or written up because of the mess of Circle Drive? Because nothing has been done. And it's been 8 years. How come when there have been shown plans that there might be development there and you need to have infrastructure, there's no infrastructure there? Even when somebody tells you there's going to be something there, but you might put it someplace else blank with nothing there with the hope for something to come. Isn't that being a little disrespectful towards us and how we should live? Do any of you up there live on a septic tank without a sewer line?
Your time is up, Mr. Keeler. Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Regina Lloyd.
Good evening, Southfield Council. My name is Regina Lloyd, resident at 29853 Pleasant Trail, Cranbrook Village subdivision. I'm here to speak on behalf of interaction that I've had with Acting Chief Bassett. Deputy Acting Chief Bassett is inclusive. He is not exclusive. I've had the opportunity to work with him through DTE Energy volunteerism. Acting Chief Bassett has encouraged me to support the Southfield Police Department in many ways while I act with him in conjunction with DTE Energy volunteer objectives and community service. I have found his disposition to be a community outreach disposition. He continues to succeed with Southfield residents in the Citizens Academy. He continues to succeed with Southfield residents in the Chief Advisory Board, and he continues to exceed with DTE Energy in terms of supporting our voluntary hours in interacting with the Southfield Police Department. Once again, I am here to let you know that based on the information, the opportunity that I've had to sit down and speak with Acting Chief Bassett, I have found him to be a true leader in regards to making sure that the citizens of Southfield, as well as my corporate initiative, is heard and is respected. I have no doubt that Acting Chief Bassett respects the citizens of Southfield. He respects our core values, and he initiates that in every term, not only in terms of law enforcement, but in terms of community outreach. If we ever had an acting chief that deserves to be stepped up to the next level, I would definitely say that Acting Chief Bassett exemplifies that character. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Sergeant Aaron Hughley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Zorn, Mr. Mayor, and other distinguished officials. My name is Aaron Hughley. I'm with the Southfield Police Department, 26,000 Evergreen Road, Southfield, Michigan, 48076. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of Acting Chief Bassett for the police chief vacancy. Again, as I spoke about a moment ago, my name is Aaron Hughley. I'm a sergeant here with the police department. I've been with the department for over 11 years now. During this time, I've had the opportunity to get to know Acting Chief Bassett both personally and professionally. On a personal side, I know that he's an outstanding husband and father. He's been married to his wife, Erica, for over 13 years now, with 4 beautiful children. On the professional side, Acting Chief Bassett has been with our agency for over 20 years, and he's held various positions throughout our agencies. Those positions are police cadet, police officer, field training officer, police administration sergeant, police administration lieutenant, police administration deputy chief, and now he's serving in the capacity as the acting chief, and he's been doing so for the past 9 months. And in that time frame, he's been responsible for the entire patrol division, as well as all the units within that division. These various assignments has made him well-rounded and fully capable of performing the duties of police chief. Additionally, Acting Chief Bassett, he knows the city of Southfield as he was born and raised here, and his parents still actively reside in the community. So in closing, I would like to say he supports his officers, which allows us to better serve the community. One example of this is his advocacy for my involvement with my brother's keeper at the Southfield chapter. As you all know, MBK is an initiative created by the then President Barack Obama in 2014. The goal and the aim was to assist young men and boys of color reaching their full potential. Acting Chief Bassett has made it a priority of his to keep. He has made it a priority of his to keep the police department involved in the continued success of MBK and many other programs and organizations throughout the city. So with all this being said, I just want to say it's my opinion that he would be an outstanding chief for our department, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Lieutenant K.D. Schneider.
Good evening. My name's Katie Schneider. I'm a lieutenant at the police department here. I've worked here for about 16 years. I've worked directly for Chief Bassett for the previous 5 years, and I'm here tonight to speak in support of him for our next chief. Chief Bassett cares deeply for the officers, and he's highly respected in our department. We appreciate the integrity and the fairness that he shows in leading our department, and we value the way in which he sacrifices his own time to come to the police department at night or on the weekend to meet with officers in briefing or hand out awards. He never misses a retirement ceremony, and he's always present to thank those employees for their service and show them that they were valued. Chief Bassett grew up in Southfield and went to school here. His family has strong ties to the city, and we consistently see him with his wife and children attending family events, which I believe speaks to his dedication to this community. I understand the city's required to go through a process with consideration to external candidates. However, we are fortunate to have the best applicant who not only meets all of the qualifications, but is an excellent leader. We're working here already. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Sheila Harbin.
Hi, Sheila Harbin, 21071 Winchester Street. I'm coming before you because I'd like to bring concerns of the changes that were made on Winchester. Originally, we were thinking the street was going to be paved, and we appreciate that. However, in addition to a traffic circle that no one's seen any value in, the street has been brought in to narrow the streets in various locations. So this has made it problematic when there's an event and people start parking on the streets. And in these areas where you've bought the street out further into the street, 2 cars cannot safely pass each other. So you get congestion and backup. You have bike riders trying to ride, and it's no longer safe because of this traffic flow. Because Winchester goes from Evergreen to Losser, there's a lot of traffic that comes through that area. So streetlights aren't in Southfield, and so bike riders are out there, and bike riders are getting hit every day. So it's unsafe for the bike riders, and the traffic circle is too small. The buses are on top of the traffic circle as they turn. You get the lawn companies coming in with their tractor trailers, they're all over the curb. Coming down the street, yes, it gets plowed, but when it's icy and the weather's bad, going slow, you still slide because trying to make that circle. It has not added value to our property. If I didn't live in Southfield and I came through that street, I'd be looking for another subdivision to move into. I think it should be reviewed. Probably there's no money to correct it at this point. I wish there was. However, I would not like to see this happen in any other subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Yvette Marble.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, could you move that mic down so that we can't have a hard time?
Thank you. My name is Yvette Mabiru. I'm the homeowner at 20594 Woodburn Drive. I'm here for my house, also for my neighbor's house. We all share the north side of Woodburn. Woodburn is the street of Evergreen and south of 9 miles. We have our Boverick Park in our backyard, and we enjoy the trees, but we had an issue last week. The swampy area was flooded. We woke up in the morning with the water coming down into our house, into our basement, into the crawl space in the utility room, and flowing down into the street. So for that whole morning, we were working on trying to get the water out, renting equipment, pumping the water out, and we worked all through the weekend, me and my neighbors and few of my neighbors on the left and the right side. I have written to the Public Works and also to Mayor Silver about this issue. We have the water out of the houses, but we still have tons of water sitting in the backyard and close to our garage and our houses. So we are still, if it rains again, we're gonna still have water. We are asking for the city to work with us to find a solution to this problem. It looks like it has been like that for years. And my understanding is the park behind us is a wetland park, so we cannot pump that water, but what can we do? Are we gonna still continue to live like that? So this is why I'm coming here today. It's my first time addressing this council. I appreciate your time. I have here pictures of my house. Those pictures shows how there was water in the backyard, in the park that belongs to the city of Southfield, and how it's coming into our backyard. So even if we start pumping in our house, because the park is north of the park ground is higher than our backyard, and the backyard are higher than our front yard, and then our front yard drain to the city of the street. So no matter what, when it's gonna rain, we're gonna have the water coming into the house anyway. So we are asking for the city to work with us to solve the issue. We're not asking for money. We would like to work together to resolve the issue. Can you assign someone to work with us on this? Should we pump or are we draining the water? But we cannot do nothing is not acceptable. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brightwell.
I want to deal with the prior speaker. She spoke of Winchester. And in my travels, I think within the last week, 2 weeks, I've gotten asked by at least 3 to 4 residents of Winchester and Wayland, over in that neighborhood, about that road work that's done there. Can we perhaps get, at some point in the near future, a report back to the council that the work that was done there was done accurately and done appropriately with respect to the standards of doing road work? Because I have gotten numerous questions about that road work over there. So, Mr. Zorn, can we have that done?
Was that yes? I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. All right, well, that will satisfy the questions that I'm getting. Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Sarah Habbo.
My name is Sarah Habbo. So I have two concerns that I wanted to address with the council. One issue is at the back of Henry Ford Optimized on Southfield Road, there are what was supposed to be detention ponds, and the detention ponds are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Detention ponds, what I've learned from some research is they're supposed to be short-term water, sewer water and rainwater holders, and at some point the water is supposed to dissipate and it's supposed to go. It's not, and now there are two large ponds where mosquitoes and other creatures are growing, and in my neighborhood, near the back of the neighborhood, there are people who can't go out in their yards and actually maintain their properties without coming back into their homes covered in mosquito bites. My neighbor, Mr. Parrish, he addressed various council members previously, has spoken to folks with Henry Ford, found out that they didn't own the building, and realized that the city needs to do something to help out, because when it was constructed as a detention pond, and it's basically acting as a long-term retention pond where it's just holding the water and it's staying there. So that's one thing that I was hoping to get addressed. The second issue is with the Open Meetings Act. I discussed this and I sent an email on July 27th in 2018, and allegedly it was being worked on, but I've not heard any follow-up since. In the handbook that the Attorney General has created to help communities deal with the Open Meetings Act, it states that you can limit public comments in various areas, but the Attorney General opinion states that if the rules would deny a person the right to address a public body, then they're invalid. And I believe that requiring people to request recognition in advance of a meeting basically prevents people from being able to speak unless the kind people on council decide that they're gonna allow an exception for somebody. And that doesn't seem like a way to be a transparent government, and I know that's what a lot of the people who are on council have said that they want. And I believe that you want that, and I'd like to see that in action by changing that rule and allowing people to be able to speak. We're already limited by 3 minutes, and in the 2 years that I've been coming to council meetings consistently, very rarely has anyone who's requested recognition, have they had their request and their comments addressed at the meeting. So I don't know what the purpose of requesting recognition in advance is, because again, 3 minutes is 3 minutes. I have 10 seconds now, and I'm gonna be done in 10 seconds, and I can't go any longer than that. So I just would like that addressed. Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Constance Bell.
Good evening, Honorable Body. My name is Constance Bell, 24637 Pembroke Drive, Lockmore Homeowners Association. I'm very troubled that I've had to come before this body so many times. The latest is that through FOIA, I requested information regarding the site plan. The first time I requested information, I received 1 page. I'm intelligent enough to know attachment means, and I requested through a second FOIA the attachments. I received additional pages, and the last meeting that I attended was April the 8th, which I was given information of why those attachments were not correct, and that there's 500 other site plan documents or pages. I asked through FOIA for a third request for the information, the site plan. What I received from the city clerk's office was an attachment saying that the building department only retains the records for 10 years. I didn't ask for anything from the building department. I'm well aware of that policy because after 10 years, I received plans for my home. That has nothing to do with the site plans that I requested. I really want there to be an investigation as to why the things have occurred within Lockmore Homeowners Association. Why were permits issued? Yes, we have amended the site plan, and we're actually working with Jeff Spence as far as the amended plans. But I need to know, why has our community, why has it been desecrated? This is sacred to us. There are houses that face each other. There's no uniformity. There's houses, some that's closer to the curb, and it seems like nobody cares, but I do, and we do. Lockmore Homeowners Association cares, and we need to know that there's an investigation, a fair investigation, perhaps an outside entity that could come in and find out why was this done within the building department. Why were permits issued to a builder without following the protocol, without following your own protocol as far as going back to the city council? Again, I know what the policies are for the building department. Why is the information now being withheld? I need to know. We need to know, because I'm troubled. Thank you.
Next request for recognition is Stacy Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Stacy Jackson, 21685 Rougewood Drive, Southfield, Michigan, 48033. By now, you pretty much know my name and why I'm here. And tonight, I'd like to say that I am back again pertaining to the septic tank issue. It's been about 8 months since I first stood before you with 60 other residents, 20 of whom were association presidents, to find out what the city was going to do about dropping a 20-year ball that they've kicked down the road for so many years without enforcement. When this council says nothing, when this council does nothing, it speaks volumes to your residents that you do not care. It makes it selective. I'd also like to speak about art. In my opinion, art is a lot like beauty. It's always in the eye of the beholder, but I also think it should always be appreciated and respected. I'm disappointed that the Motown mural that has sat inside of the nation's first mall is being desecrated, sitting on a shelf near Parks and Recs, rather being displayed somewhere where it can be admired. There's trash on top of it, direct sunlight, which is fading the artistic beauty of this mural. This is not like we're sitting in the cornfield of Iowa, which steps away from Motown. Creativity and innovation, the basic principles of that is just simply caring. Who among you have reached out to the Motown Museum who's doing an expansion to see if they want to have it there? Or how about the Charles Wright Museum right downtown? Why is it not being displayed in Parks and Rec? I stood here maybe 3 months ago, and this city honored Kimmy Horn for putting on a free concert. You know what she sings at those concerts? Motown hits. So we can respect the person who's doing cover tracks for them, but can't respect the artist who respected the artistry to put them, embellish them as a mural. Why? See, I get paid for a living for creativity and innovation, and I'm sought after statewide. And I tell every client that I work with, the reason why I'm the best is because I care. And I don't just care about me when I come to this podium, I care about the residents behind me that spoke about their concerns too. Now, lastly, I didn't come here planning to speak about Acting Chief Bassett, but I'm compelled to do so. He is the one person in this city that every night when I leave here, he approaches me and says he's sorry for the treatment. That man cares. We should elect him. In fact, we should clone him at least 3 times and put him in one of your chairs. Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Mr. Keith Harris.
How y'all doing today? All Race and Life Matter, P.O. Box 2769, zip code 48037. I absolutely agree with my wonderful woman. He's a good guy. And anybody that can sit down and hold a conversation with me longer than 5 minutes and make me feel good when I walk away is a decent person. I like the dude. Let's swear him in now. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like him. He's good people. I've talked to Barbara Talley. She likes him. I've met with the community. The community likes him. We got somebody that's grew up in the community. We got somebody want to work with the community. And we got somebody we can also talk about race, which he want to work across the aisle and talk about how we can make better police officers. That's a good thing. And now I want to get on the art again. The Motown mural, I done been to the main African American Museum, talked to the curator there. She agreed why this art has not been wrapped, stored in a proper fashion to save it. Here we are. Do you not know we have put more attention into Confederacy? These red poles, do you really know what these red poles mean? This is blood. We were hung from these poles. These are Confederate signs. This is Donald Trump all day long. This city has involved themselves in more corruption by awarding schools to 501c3s, to members of this council who sit on the board. Now we close down our Beechwood golf course. Look in the Southfield Sun, you finna open up your own golf course. So what you gonna do? You're gonna take the Beechwood golf course and give it to the 501c3 and let them build condos there? The corruption in this city must end. And if it don't end, it's going to have a bigger problem than you may ever think. If the Beechwood golf course wind up in the hands of these individuals, I swear on my life, you're going to think it's 67 in Southfield again. We will not tolerate this kind of in-house corruption from our public appointed and elected officials. We want our property. We don't want overcrowded communities with condos where our kids can no longer ride their bikes up and down the streets. This is just wrong. We can barely keep a road for 1 year. That's a brand new road. So what do you think more traffic on the road's going to do? 6 months. Corruption in this city must end. Thank you. And get our chief. We want that man.
Our next request for recognition is Karen Ledford. Is Karen Ledford here? All right. Our last request is Michael Owens.
Michael Owens at 19270 Addison. I'm not as eloquent as some of the other individuals before me, but my concern is with the cost of the septic tank permit. The exuberant cost when compared with other municipalities, as well as the separate cost of the tap connection. So, to me, this is supposed to be a community that assists in the development of property and people. I don't understand how you're assisting when you're charging the exuberant costs. And we already are expected to pay a fee to have the installation done. So I'm kind of in the lurch. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the council portion of the meeting. Mr. Brightwell.
Mr. Chair, I want to commend our police department for being proactive. We're putting on in April the Please Stop Me program. When I saw this and I read about it and I became aware of it, I think that's one of the most creative items that deals with human life and human conditions that I've seen in quite a while. It allows, and well, it made me think about it. I had a ride along with the police department. My first year on council, I had a ride along. It was at night with one of the technical support units, crime suppression units. And I had to wear a life vest, and it was just he and I in the car. And I know he pulled over 3 individuals in the car, and obviously he pulled for back. He called for backup and made me, told me to stay in the car. Obviously, I wasn't going to move. But everything that was said between the car passengers and the officers were piped into the automobile that I was sitting in. And I could sense certain things could really go wrong when one individual in the back seat was not cooperative. And obviously, nothing happened, but you could literally see where things could have went wrong if a certain move or a certain item had popped up. But this particular program, it is for teenagers with a driver's license, and it's called Please Stop Me. And it's a police stop that is done in a controlled environment along with a parent or a guardian with the young person that is a new driver. And I would like to, obviously, I think there's a backlog of it. I think they had a sellout, whatever you call it, a number of individuals, and there's a backlog of individuals who wish to be in that program. I commend the police department and Chief Bassett for pushing that particular program, and also for being proactive in putting it on. And I think if you're interested in getting your kid or someone else's kid into this particular program, you have to live in Southfield and or attend a school in Southfield. You have to be a high school teenager with a driver's license and or a learner's permit. But please call, I think it is the article indicated that Officer Pate at 248-796-5360, or an Officer Buckberry at 248-796-5409. And obviously, if neither one of those numbers are, you can get in touch with them. I'm sure if you call the police non-emergency line, they can arrange for you to get your kid volunteered to be in this particular program. And it's just I commend the police department for doing this. When I read about it, it's just, I can just see this is a game changer it could be a life changer, a game changer for young people and their interaction with the police. It indicates what can go wrong through this particular program. They talk about, and I'm not an authority on it, but they talk about what can go wrong during a particular stop. So I just want to commend the police department, whoever brought that program to the city of Southfield, because I think it means a whole lot, and it's a very positive. Mr. Cruz.
And excuse me, Councilor, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have to go back to communications. I overlooked one person to recognize, was Rosemary Allen. If she could come forward before we continue on.
Thank you very much, and my name is Rosemary Allen. To the Honorable Council, to our Mayor. As you can see, I am a part of the Southfield Community Police Advisory Board, and I also echo the sentiments of all of those who came before you tonight to talk about Acting Chief Brian Bassett. So I too am on that team. The police chief is one of the most important positions in our city, the most important. And when you have a police chief that actually lives in the city, his family is receiving the same protection that you and I are. So that means he is actually vested in our community. I graduated from the program in 2013, so I know him for at least the last 6 years and even prior to that. He has been trained by some of the best with our former chief, Eric Hawkins. So I'm asking you to really consider who you would like to see at the top of that position. He has a great temperament, and I believe he loves what he does. It's not about a paycheck, it's about a heart. And he has a heart for this community. He is homegrown. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to our citizens. When you have a chief living in the same city, oh yeah, that's important. So, council and whoever else has any decision-making in this, the power is in your hands. I am asking that you put that power into the hands of our acting chief and make him the chief for the city of Southfield. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Morris.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the city administrator. So about a month ago,
I did ask that we address Mr. Keeler's concerns, and you told me that, well, I asked for financial analysis on what it would cost to install the sewer line. And I know you were working on some numbers. I know that the mayor had met with the folks at Lawrence Tech, but can you speak to what the status is on it?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I have asked, and the council president and I have discussed, I'm looking for a public works meeting where there's a whole series of public works issues, and the discussion was that we would go through the zoning issues, which is this Thursday, the budget meeting on May 30th, and then I need to secure a date for public works, and the update on the septic system, from the loans to the fees charged, as well as Circle Drive. Those are part of the topics. Again, I don't have I've got probably about easily a 3-hour meeting just on public works items the administration would like to discuss with council.
So you're stating that we're going to have a special meeting regarding public works on those issues?
That is correct. Originally, I was hoping the June 3rd COW, but that's tonight we're going to be doing the police chief public interviews.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First, I'd like to acknowledge the death of Judge Damon Keefe, who passed away and had his funeral today. He was a very intelligent and important person, not only to the residents in the city of Detroit, but to all of us here in the state of Michigan. So I just want to send my condolences to his family. I also wanted to make a comment. A lot of times when our residents are before us at the podium, we are taking notes, and we do work on your issues and your problems and your questions and your concerns. What I'm hearing, though, is that we need to do better in responding to you to let you know that we're working on those things. So I will ask that and work very closely with administration and with the clerk to see if there's a way for us to at least contact the persons that are here before us, because we do a lot of reviewing and vetting and research on the problems and the concerns that you have when you stand before us. But the issues that I'm hearing is that you don't know a lot of times what we're doing, such as what Councilwoman Morris just mentioned with the septic tanks. A lot of times Mr. Keeler doesn't know that we're doing those things, and so it just adds to your concerns. So I would just say that we are acknowledging you and listening to you and taking what you're saying very seriously. And in addition to that, I have also asked that our clerk prepare for us like an addendum with action items, so that a lot of times we're requesting information and we'll get a response from one of the department heads saying, oh yeah, I'll get that report to you, and then it falls to the wayside. Not by, a lot of times they're busy or what have you, and we understand that, but we're requesting an action item so that we'll know what we asked, who's responsible, and when they're going to return that information to us. That'll help us to get information back to you in a more timely manner as well. So I just wanted to let you know that we hear you, we appreciate you, we understand how important it is for you to know that we are listening to you and then acting on some of the things that you're saying. But we need to be better at communicating what we're doing to you, and we'll try to get better at that. So thank you.
Mr. Mandelbaum.
Thank you. There's a few things coming up that I think everyone should be aware of, or they can tell someone. But this Saturday, the Southfield chapter of My Brother's Keeper is hosting Meal with a Message. It's Saturday, May 18th from 11 to 1:30 in the Marcotte Room in the lower level of the Southfield Parks and Rec building. And it's open for young men grades 6 to 12. And it's a conversation about time management in an open discussion. You can talk about anything you'd like. If you'd like to attend for My Brother's Keeper Meal with a Message, you can contact Joanne Gurley at 248-796-4503. Also, next week on Tuesday, May 21st, we're having a senior fair here in the pavilion from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. It's going to have informational items, vendors geared towards seniors. You can learn about home health care services. You'll have insurance providers, housing facilities, and you can talk one-on-one with different representatives, and that's for anyone who is 50 and above. Also, there was mention earlier about Beechwoods, but the one thing that we're trying to do this year, because the golf course is currently closed, is they're having tips with a pro at the Beechwoods driving range that is free, open to the public, and it's on select days. Talk to the Parks and Rec Department, but you'll get free advice on the range from the PGA teaching pro that is there. And that's usually in the mornings, but there are select dates, so please contact Parks and Recreation for more information. Also, there was, I made an announcement at our last meeting. The Southfield Library hosted a program for Holocaust Memorial Day that was well attended, and they're thinking of doing another one in the fall. It was interesting hearing the perspectives from a Southfield resident who lived through it. There were speakers this evening who mentioned some race issues with possibly the Red Pole Park and things that we don't necessarily, we don't like to address some of these racial issues that go on in the world. Luckily, in Southfield, we don't have any real race issues, as you heard from many speakers this evening, especially about with our police department. But we are coming across the 98th anniversary of the Tulsa race riots in 1921, which was a very deadly, bloody 2 days. And we shouldn't, we should remember these things, just like I mentioned the Holocaust. We should remember all of these different historical things that happened and be thankful that we don't have these issues in Southfield. We pride ourselves on diversity, and we get along. We don't have, we are a, I'm going blank on the word, but we are a model for diversity in Southfield. So continue to get along and listen to each other with discussion. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Mr. Zorn, the McDonald House on 12 Mile Road in Evergreen needs a grass cutting. I understand there's a little problem with the owners, but it is surrounded by business and condos, and they're concerned about that somebody is going to break into that home because it looks neglected. It's right on 12 Mile Road.
Okay.
So I'd like to see that addressed, please.
I'll let code know.
I need my grass cut too, Fred. Anybody, anything else from council? Ms. Taylor?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention one more thing. Fred, and I think you sent an email to Council President Lloyd Cruz regarding this, but the last meeting, I believe I mentioned about the garbage pickup, where it was the limited number of bags, where it was on the website and on materials that the DPW was passing out, which we did not know. And you were saying that you were going to have all those pulled and make sure that the website was updated and all that kind of stuff, and Cable 15 was going to start running ads, letting people know that they can put multiples of garbage and everything will be picked up. Did that happen? I don't know.
I did send out an order to cease the distribution of the orange stickers that the waste hauler was putting out, indicating that there was restrictions. The restrictions go back to a point in the city when the city did have restricted garbage, and we did not always have a service where you can put everything out on the curb.
Okay.
What I don't know is if that made cable. I know that Community Relations sent out a piece on that, and they are working on a rewrite. If you'll recall, the sticker had multiple check items.
Yes.
There are some concerns that we still need to address. For example, an eviction. When a landlord has to evict someone, all the stuff is put on the curb, and that happens at any point during the week. So we'll still be using some type of sticker stating there's only so much that can be processed. And there are a few things that we still need to be worked out. But leaf bags, there are no restrictions. There is some concern that we have contractors who have been, after cutting grass or raking leaves for clients, bringing their product here and putting them in the front, and the city's being asked to pick those up.
Okay.
All right.
Because that's why I was trying to make sure that the listening audience would know that as well. So when they get those orange or yellow stickers regarding the contain.
A very bright orange sticker that
Yeah.
was being used apparently.
Yeah, to ignore number 9 because that should not be. Okay, thank you.
If I could just add to that, in a discussion with GFL, when it comes to yard waste bags, they are picking up more than 10, whatever's out there.
I hear you, Mayor, but I know from the residents that that's not the case. I've seen pictures. So GFL is telling us that, but GFL is not doing that.
I can't speak for every driver. My conversation was with the supervisor, who
Okay.
said, so maybe they haven't, the message hasn't gotten to every driver, but on my own street, I've seen 20 bags picked up and cans emptied, so I know it's happening, maybe not universally, which it should be.
What I'm encouraging the residents to do is contact DPW. When they're left, contact DPW, which is extra work for our guys, but at least we can have a record of the ones that's not being picked up, and they can get picked up later on that day.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm contacting GFL because that's what we're paying for.
Absolutely, I agree.
And Mr. President, cable just confirmed there is a message on the cable board.
It is,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anything else from council? Mr. Mayor?
Since Mr. Montalban mentioned this, there are flyers out in the lobby for the latest Meal with a Message detailing, and you can look for those every month. I would make a comment regarding the Motown mural, and that for 6 months we were talking to people especially after they announced their addition. We were talking to the Motown Museum, and we were referred to person after person, and calls were not returned. And finally, a couple of weeks ago, we were told they're not interested. We thought, especially since the mural features Berry Gordy prominently, we thought they might be interested in the mural, and we were placed on hold for a good 6 months. So we're back to square one. I like the suggestion of the African American History Museum. We'll look into that. Since we finally got an answer from the Motown Museum. The other thing is, it is the first regular meeting in May, and by city charter, the budget is distributed tonight. We had a little printing problem today, so I don't have the complete package for you. But to keep in line with the charter, I am giving you part of the information, but it does have the complete recommended expenditure plan for 2019-20, as well as revenue sources. So, and we are looking at for next year, for the starting July 1st, a budget of general fund budget, I'd qualify that, of $78,524,447. And then there are the various other funds that, outside funds, such as cable TV, the library fund, local streets, major streets, motor pool, parks and recreation, and water and sewer. That is in excess of 93 million, and then another 4 million in various grants for a operating total of $176,447,911. And you'll have more information prior to the May 30th budget review meeting. And again, for everyone's reminder, the budget is proposed to be adopted on June 17th. I believe it's a 5:30 meeting, and then go into a regular meeting. That's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you for the administration.
I have no comments this evening, Mr. President.
All right. Attorney?
Nothing from the legal department. Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Just real quick, today kicks off Police Week in 2019, so police has been the code word tonight, I guess. But I just want to thank all of our police officers here within the Southfield Police Department for them and all the work they do, and just a special thanks for putting themselves at risk for us. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't believe I see a treasurer, planner, assessor, or engineer here for this evening. We don't have any meetings to schedule at this time. Be reminded, we do have another meeting this week, though, on the 16th at, 7 o'clock in the council chambers. We have one ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we enact ordinance number 1702.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Mandelbaum, supported by Mr. Perkasi, that we enact ordinance number 1702. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, ordinance is enacted. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Mr. President, can you repeat the meeting? We didn't hear you.
Yes,
for Thursday.
I'm sorry. Meeting is this Thursday, May 16th, 7 p.m., council chambers. Is there any other comments or questions, concerns? If not, meeting adjourned.